Foremost, we had an opportunity of meeting the outreach team when they visited various provinces in the country to solicit for ideas that were going to be part of the drafting of the VOLS, Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act points. We mentioned quite a myriad of issues that needed attention. However, some of those issues were not captured in the final bill, draft bill, eventually, which was ratified. We then made a follow-up to try and raise awareness to this particular committee through the speaker by way of this petition, so that some of those issues may call for amendments. They are not the only ones that we have cited. There are quite a number of them inside this act. We have gone through this act thoroughly, and we have discovered that there are quite a number of issues that need attention. The template that was used to write this may not have been particularly out of the outreach. It drew inferences from other maybe acts like the War Veterans Act and any other acts that are relevant to the war veterans. But in this particular petition, we brought out only two of a number of issues which are to do with the terms only. But we have got quite a number of issues that we wish to discuss here. According to the petition, we, the veterans from the ZIPRA Veterans Association, our prayer was that at least certain terms be clarified so that at least they would then straighten out policy issues, fundamental policy issues with regards the source or destination of ex-combatants. There are people who have been categorized here as non-combatant cadres and the term transit camp. So, but if I would then talk about the non-combatant cadres, I will still come back to it here in the bigger breadth of what we wish to present to you, so that at least when you revisit this act, then it will be all-inclusive and hopefully will capture the ideals of most of the war veterans in Zimbabwe. In terms of our prayer, that any person accredited as such in terms of this act, having crossed any of the Zimbabwe's borders for the purpose of participating in the liberation struggle as a member of either ZANLA or ZIPRA forces, but due to circumstances beyond their control, did not get military training or remained in the transit camp in Mozambique, Botswana, Zambia, Angola, Tanzania, and any other countries until 29th of November 1979 should be the major capture that should be included in this act. Why are we raising this? Because in the act, there is no mention of Botswana. There is no mention of Tanzania. There is no mention of Angola. There is no mention of GDR. There is no mention of either Russia, where we were training, not only in the military, but in terms of the non-military or non-combatant, in terms of But training, everywhere.
This is one language.
Yes. I think, thank you very much.
You have made a point on that one.
Yes. Yes. Then, the other prayer is that the issue of the transit camp be clarified. For the purpose of this act, it means any camp for the temporary accommodation of any persons who cross the Zimbabwe's borders for the purpose of participating in the liberation struggle as a member of either ZANLA or ZIPRA forces. And that is what it should read, so that at least it does not discriminate from either Mozambique or Zambia against other countries. So these are the two issues that are within this particular petition. But I may draw you now to the broader spectrum of issues.
Yes, for those that are not in your petition, I would ask you to be brief so that we take note.
Yes.
But we've heard these two. Are there any additions on those two that are in the petition?
Yes, I will come to them.
I'm listening from your colleagues. Do they have anything to add on those two fundamental issues that you raised in your petition? Because on the other issues, it would be the flexibility of the committee to take them, to listen to them, although they were not part of the mandate that we were given as a committee, because the petition is clear. But we give you the opportunity, since you have traveled all the same to come here to talk to us. We'll give you an opportunity to list those areas that you think we should have left out. Okay? We use our discretion. But let's hear if there are any additions on the first 2 points.
On the first 2 points, the non-combatant cadre, the transit camp, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The initial proposal by the Minister Kashiri sometime in August, she had indicated it well how it should read on the bill or on the act. I'll just go to it. She had said non-combatant cadres refer to those who had attained the age of 16 by 1979, having crossed any Zimbabwe's borders with the intention of participating in the liberation struggle as members of ZANLA or ZIPRA. But due to circumstances beyond their control, these people got military training, underline that one, got military training or were not trained, but remained in temporary, she had put refugee camps in other countries until November 29, said Minister Kashi. We only corrected the word refugee camp to read transit camps, and also corrected the word got military training and others did not get military training. So what we are saying is that on the draft bill, on the final draft bill, all was well, captured well, but on the final draft or on the act, it was another story. So our concern is that we ask this Augusta House or committee to look into this omission and rectify it. That's my conclusion.
Thank you. Act, part 1 deals with benefits. Benefits, and maybe it's a definition of terms. But then these benefits should reflect towards the living and the dead. It does not mention very clearly. Here it is before and after independence. Where do we start looking at the living and dead beneficiaries? Right? The death certificate should be one. The surviving spouse probably could be the other one, which will give us testimony, or the vetting records, the initial vetting records of 1995, 97, thereabout, should give us some indication. But in this particular one, it is not very clear now where we are getting our details from. The second part is the board. On section 3, it should read a 5-year term. It should be a 5-year term. Then on the other parts, it talks about the chief director in relation to the chairperson. we are now lost as to the terms of reference for the chief director and the chairperson of the board. We realize that there is a collusion of responsibilities, or a not very much so clear statement as to who is who, the chairman and the chief director. And then we come on to the detainees. The detainees, on submission during the outreach, they had mentioned 90 days. But then in the Act, it only kept us 6 months. But somebody could have been victim of violence, of whatever state that was during that time when he was a detainee, and was booted to nothing, and within 30 days he was a cabbage. What do you do with that? And he's still surviving. Couldn't he be looked at? Right? Then we come on to war collaborators. The war collaborator and non-combatant. One is said in place of the other, or probably it's a question of semantics, we don't know. But when it is being explained, the only 3 delimitations come out: the fighter, the restrictee, and the non-combatant. But this particular non-combatant is war collaborator, and yet a war collaborator never crossed the border to go into the struggle in terms of guerrilla warfare administration that we know. So, food for thought. Part 2. The chief director, he is said to be an ex officio of a board. Which board? Where did you officiate? It's not clear. Did you officiate in the previous Wunji board? Or in the Justice Wunga board? Or in the Matemadana board? Or which one? Then we need that identification of that board, so that at least we draw some experience from this particular person who is going to oversee our issues. There must be a veteran, he must be a veteran of the liberation struggle with the qualifications or merit, either a lawyer, an ex-combatant, a commander, or somebody of repute. Right? The chairperson or the chief director terms of reference must be clarified so that at least section 7 of the VOLS is clear. Then section 3.4, there's a fast track. Why don't we give a grace period of 60 days? If you look at section 3.4, there should be a grace period, not only 30 days, but 60 days. Because if it is done in 30 days, logistics may defeat us from Bulawayo to come to Harare and make a presentation. Unless if we do it in the form of a petition like this, then we will be called up here. Whereas things should have been clear. Give us sufficient time to deliberate things so that at least we deal with them within 60 days. And then we can say we have exhausted it. We will not delay your processes of administering the act, but at least we would have done due diligence to the act itself. The chairperson or any other member, right? This is on powers of the board. What is the role of the chairperson? I've asked that question. I think this is the second time. Every vetting officer becomes a commissioner of oaths. Are they going to be given stamps as commissioner of oaths and do the business of commissioning oaths everywhere else except, or they are only confined to war veterans only? Because once you make him a commissioner of oaths, what will stop him from commissioning any other document? Then, non-combatant cadre who joined the combat as is in the assembly points is not yet vetted. Some generals today are not yet vetted because they joined the liberation struggle from the assembly point. They were never combatants. But in 1980, they had the opportunity of coming into And today they have risen in rank. And what do we say about them? Who is going to vet them now that they are officers of the state? Investigations by vetting officers must be done before appeals. Here, there are some people who were disqualified and their monies were stopped during the process of the previous vetting period, isn't it? And these people probably will come up again and give a story of how they became more veterans or how they sniveled to become more veterans. They were called up by their relatives into the system. They are benefiting today. Very high offices for that matter. Why should the minister's decision be final on any appeal? Because then they are justifying certain unscrupulous beneficiaries into it. Why don't they give it to the board? Why should they relegate it to the minister, or just as a privilege of the minister only? Certain people today are in high offices when they don't deserve. And we want them out yesterday. Right? Part 3, schemes for and funds for veterans of the liberation struggle. Hey, what are we benefiting here? Are we being paid a pension or a grant? When it is a pension, we believe that a pension is paid to a civil servant. I served in the army to the rank of colonel. I deserve a pension. He did not serve in the army. What does he get? Does he get a pension? Why shouldn't it be cleared? Then what is the clear clarification here? Is either we have a pension and a grant. A grant is based on social safety nets, based on the MPDL against the index, isn't it? The economic index. Yeah? A bag of 50 kg meal, relish for the whole month, cooking oil for the whole month. How much does that equate to? Plus rentals, plus transport fees, plus school fees, plus health benefits, and that much increases to $600. That's the index, isn't it? And that index then informs the MPDL, minimum poverty datum line. And that minimum poverty datum line should then inform the level of grant that this person should get if suppose he is not a civil servant. In my case, I served as a war veteran, I served as an officer in the state. So I be paid pensions for my civil service, and then I'll be paid a grant. But who will administer the two funds? And how are they put together? So that I get them on the single payday. We need a clarification of that. Then, educational benefits for spouses and other members. Of recent, we have not been able to go to school simply because we have been told that war veterans do not get school fees paid by the state. Why is that discrimination so? And how can then we come back? Because we also want to do, you are doctors here. We also want PhDs. We also want PhDs. We want to go to school. So who's going to pay for us, our school fees? Who's going to pay for my wife? So we need these educational benefits to be granted to us, the war veterans, and to our spouses as it is appearing to other members. We know that certain members who are sitting pretty right at the top there paid for their children, paid for themselves, paid for their girlfriends, paid for their wives. We know it. And that was very corruptly done. Then, duty. Why are we subjected to duties when ministers are not are exempt duty? Minister who is there just for 5 years, I'm a war veteran for life. But he goes to Botswana there, he buys a car and he brings it duty-free in this country. Why? Is this so special than you are? Oh, maybe your ministers also probably benefit. Is this special more than I am? I don't know. But we need customs exercise exemptions as war veterans. Customs and exercise exemptions as war veterans. Just as good as it applies to the minister. We do not want diplomatic status of the minister, because the minister is mandated by the state to go into different countries any one time. I don't move up and down, but at least I need to sit pretty and be happy that I have done my work in Zimbabwe before independence and after. Then I'm going to my final ones. All vetted successfully should benefit from a gratuity, and it must be backdated to the 1997 payments. Remember, we were given $50,000. There are some people who went into the liberation struggle earlier before us, and when they got to Zambia, they were told, oh, by the way, you are and teach secondary school. They were never given the opportunity to go for military training. Right? But then, he was there during the liberation struggle. When he is vetted, his dues must be backdated to 1997, where we got our $50,000. Whatever translation that it was in whatever currency that it was, at least you revisit that and see. Then medical benefits must be accorded to all, and if a broad treatment is required, let it be for all. Part 5, which is the last. Resettlement benefits. Land issues. Land issues. Whether it be rural or urban or peri-urban, we should be able to access land. Not only on a 20% term, because then it becomes very marginal. Suppose there would be 20 people, then I would get maybe a 1%, isn't it? So it's not much. We need land for a purpose. Then the land for a purpose is applied for, and when it is applied for, whether it is in the rural, comes from peri-urban or in the city, it must be granted to me because that's what I fought for. Then
you say that is your final point.
Yes, the part four, right? Then there is a secular line ministry requirements to be removed. We beg that the secular line ministry requirements be removed, and these were based mainly on the CIO economic section recommendations. You will need to revisit them, which restricted or which marginalized certain elements from benefiting the national resource. And that should be considered in terms of...
What's the reference of the section you're quoting?
Yes, CIO economic section on certain negative...
what does it say?
Well, it blocks the projects of some of the sections of the communities. Yes, please look at it. And this also is in relation or a correlation with ZIPRA. You know that ZIPRA will not allow money coming into this country for government purposes. But for individuals, it may come in. And this has blocked quite a lot of other funds that individuals would like to bring into the country. For instance, if I have a young brother who is a mogul somewhere and I have to bring money into this country, then there is a lot of questioning that takes place there. Is he using this money for a genuine purpose or whatever the case, which is due diligence. But most of the things that are within the CIO economic section are very restrictive and vindicative of development. Finally, I think that is all. The dissemination to all veterans should be done of this.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263 chat.